Hello everyone, welcome to the channel with enthusiasm. Let's start the video of this occasion. I have just separated from my wife and I am at peace with that decision. 10 years ago, I believed I had the ideal life, a high-paying job, a charming wife, a spotless home, 2 new cars, and a baby on the way. I found contentment in my work and excelled at it. Stability was a blessing. My wife loved me unconditionally, accepting even my flaws as I worked to improve them. In return, I adored her, and in the eyes of others, we were a perfect couple. We received constant praise and envy for our seemingly flawless relationship. As time passed, things progressed. I received continual promotions, and now we have 3 children, having moved from an ordinary home to a notable one. My wife was achieving great success in her career as an optometrist, and we enjoyed an exciting vacation each year. At first, I believed that I had achieved everything I wanted. However, in early 2015, something happened that I couldn't understand. For her birthday, I surprised my wife with a Tesla, as she hadn't gotten a new car since 2008. She loved the gift, and we spent the day exploring the vehicle. It seemed like a perfect day. However, over the next few months, I noticed a growing distance from her, not only from me, but also from our children and from my mother, with whom she used to get along well. This change left me hurt, causing me to try to start conversations with her and understand what was going on. There were ups and downs in our interactions, but in July 2016, I realized that she was no longer attending yoga classes, even though she said she was. I somehow found out that she could see the location of our phones through our shared plan. This led me to realize that she was often at a nearby house in a more affluent neighborhood to the north of the city. The situation began to generate suspicions and tensions. Over the next few months, her distance and erratic behavior became more evident. My family also noticed this change, but I didn't have the courage to confront them about it until more than a year later. She reacted coldly, accusing me of invading her privacy. I asked directly if she was cheating on me, and she denied it. However, she soon confessed to having slept with another man. At that point, I made the mistake of forgiving her and believing we could get through this. We tried couples therapy and spending more time together, which momentarily seemed to work. But the ephemeral joy and my attempt to recover what we had were in vain. I was taken aback when, after a business trip, I returned home to find not 1, but 2 men in my bed with her. Now, I'm finally expressing my feelings. My wife tried to justify her actions, but I didn't listen. I retreated to the basement, consuming alcohol while she interacted with the men. When I finally went upstairs, I found her sitting there with a sad smile. She tried to explain, but I stopped her, demanding that she leave. I informed her that she would take her things by the end of the week. Her crying about the infant crap didn't affect my decision. I feel sadness, but not for her, but for my children and anyone who may cross her path in the future. My fight for custody of my children will be intense, fearing judicial partiality. I hope you understand my 3-year efforts to mend a broken marriage, in vain, on behalf of my family. This morning I shared with my children. They asked why mom wasn't home last night. I've decided they won't be going to school today, and they're all upstairs together. The entire situation is extremely sad for everyone involved, and could have been completely avoided. I have no compassion for my wife. I hope she carries a stigma for the rest of her life. I want her to go her way, and I want others to know her. She's a top optometrist in our area, and it could seriously hurt her business if word gets out, something you might have pondered when you caught me cheating on my wife. I found out that my wife was being unfaithful. This was something I should have seen coming. I want to share a positive update with you. I hope you remember me, as I posted here about 2 months ago about my experience catching my wife cheating. Since then, many events have unfolded. On June 10, 2018, our court case was finally closed. It was a relatively quick and smooth process, and I was successful in every step. I apologize if this report violates any rules, and if so, the moderators are free to remove it. However, after receiving incredible support for my previous post, I feel that it is my duty to share an update. I remember again that my previous story was long. Upon returning from a business trip, I found my wife in bed with 2 men. This came after years of deliberate betrayal on her part. Unfortunately, I was naive enough to take her back after discovering previous betrayals. The situation got complicated when she became hostile and threatened to take my children away from me. I was apprehensive as I had heard scary stories of mothers getting custody regardless of the situation. I took a leave of absence from work for the summer, as I was emotionally broken and unable to handle the thought of my ex-wife taking care of our children. On May 20, 2018, I filed for full custody and divorce. My best friend at work initially tried to help for free, but the situation got too complex. I hired a lawyer and we started compiling evidence, including phone and location records. The legal process began on June 12, a week after I returned from vacation with my children. While I didn't get them out of state without consulting my attorney, this situation was somewhat distracting. My eldest daughter, age 10, has been emotionally stable enough to answer some of the lawyer's questions, although I'd rather she didn't have to deal with that. Things got complicated when my ex-wife announced her move to Southern California. It would mean that the children would have to make a difficult choice. However, the court ruled that they would live full-time with me while being allowed to visit the mother at specified intervals. Relieved by the outcome, I recognize that I am not responsible for the failure of my marriage. In the coming years, I will dedicate time to myself and my children. This sad story had a positive outcome in the end. Congratulations on the strength and for moving forward. Sadly, my girlfriend led me to believe that she was pregnant, but I later found out that it wasn't my child after birth. I need support and I share my story here after following the subreddit for a while. Initially, I suspected that my girlfriend was cheating. While I didn't expect to share this situation, here I am. I am 28 years old and have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, who is 25 years old, for about 2 years. At first, everything was fine. Then she turned out to be pregnant, but later I found out that the child was not mine. I need support as I've been on Reddit for a while and started following this sub when I suspected my girlfriend was being unfaithful. While I would rather not be posting this, here I am. I am 28 years old and have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, who is 25 years old, for about 2 years. At first, everything was going well. However, she told me she was pregnant, although I was suspicious as she claimed to be on contraceptives. Still, I went to an appointment with her. I suspected it was just one of those things that happen. I always wanted to have a family, but this wasn't how I imagined it would all start. I was relieved when we got through the first trimester without a hitch and she started to move into my spot. However, there was a warning sign that I missed. We started planning what we would do and organizing the baby's room. Please note that this is a summary of the original text and some nuances may have been lost in the rewrite. She strongly insists that she will go back to work, although she can remain at home. She claims with conviction that she can make it work. I attend every consultation with her. So far, things are going well. It's the 3rd quarter, and I adjust my schedule to keep up with each appointment. So far, I have been present for all of her full appointments. However, at this appointment, she asks me to wait while she talks to the doctor first. I'm quite worried that something might be wrong with the baby, and she might be hesitant to tell me. After entering, the exam is performed and everything seems to be fine. My concerns about why I couldn't be there for all of this are ignored by my girlfriend. Another red flag comes when I notice that we're about a month and a half away from the due date, and she's been acting weird about calls and texts. She claims it's work and confidential, but my suspicion grows. I resist the temptation to confront her directly. When the baby is finally born, the emotion is overwhelming and the child is perfect. The birth went well. However, a new problem arises when she vehemently insists that I attend the birth registration. She seems to be pushing too hard, and that makes me suspicious. An argument ensues, but eventually she stops pushing. I suspect she knows my doubts are growing. While we're at home, she goes to take care of the baby, and when I wake up, I realize she left her phone unlocked. Curiosity prompts me to investigate, and I find a full conversation on the Kick app with a man, where she shares updates on appointments and baby pictures. However, conversation suggests that the baby could be his child. Upon confronting her, she apologizes and admits that the baby could be mine or someone else's, but she believes it's mine. I demand a paternity test, and after an agonizing week, the results confirm the baby is not mine, and she moves in with her mother. Here's the crux that cost me so much. When investigating, I only had usernames. She was talking to him, who was her boss, a married man with a wife and 4 children. I contacted his wife, providing all the evidence, including text messages from my girlfriend stating the baby was his. My heart is broken in so many ways, even though I know I'm lucky in so many ways. However, I am deeply hurt, and this has completely changed my perspective. On another topic, my troubled sister is cause for concern. She is trying to take over our deceased grandmother's apartment and move her lover there. I'm upset about this situation, and wanted to share this to vent. If anyone reads this, sorry if it doesn't make sense without context. Thank you for any support and understanding. And so we come to the end of today's video. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.